Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. 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 Parrot TV.
Hi, welcome to World Inkers Network. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. Today we have two wonderful guests, Alex S. Johnson and Alea Celeste Williams. Alex Johnson is an author and editor, a neurodivergence and anti-sex trafficking activist, and former music journalist, as well as the operating editor at Nocturne Books. And Alea is a human rights activist, an anti-racist activist, an ecology activist, and the COO of Nocturne Books. Alea's a little bit late, but we will be waiting for her pretty soon. I'm going to bring Alex on, and we'll talk a little bit about his project with Alea, Thunderstruck, which introduces us to this wonderful book that you have, Thunderstruck. It's, I believe, a dark poetry volume, and it's a collaboration between you and Alea and Sandy DeLuca. So tell us a little bit about the genesis of this volume.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
sure. I'm getting a little bit of an echo. Do you have that on your side?
No, that's interesting. I wonder what the issue is.
Okay. Well,
It must be
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah. I can
lag in my.
I can just ignore it. I think it has to do with the way that um the SteamYard is set up.
Right.
Okay. So yeah. So Thunderstruck began life with Sandy DeLuca, who is a critically acclaimed author and artist who lives in Providence, Rhode Island. And she has had a long career. She started her career actually in the private sector, in the corporate world, and then she's retired more recently. And she is a major artist. She's also a journalist, and she one of her things that she did was she wrote for pro wrestling magazines. Very interesting person. You should. Well, I don't know if she would be willing to appear on your show. One of her she's been nominated 2 times for the Bram Stoker Award for 2 dark poetry collections that she wrote, and one of them was called Burial Plot in Sagittarius, which is actually in the collection, the Harris collection of poetry and plays at Brown University, along with people like Walt Whitman and Edgar Allan Poe. So it's extremely prestigious,
Mhm.
and she's a lot of fun. So in 1998 or so, she wrote a number of sort of fragmentary pieces of poems, and a lot of her work. Oh, she's also a witch, by which I mean that she's a collaborator with Silver. I believe her name is Silver Ravenwolf. Hi, Alea.
Mhm.
And in a book, and she's in a book called to stir a magical cauldron, which is out, I believe, from the Llewellyn books. And she wrote some spells for Silver Ravenwolf. And so, at any rate, in 1998, she wrote a series of a lot of her work has to do with the paranormal, with the occult. Hi, Alea. Looking beautiful
Hi.
today.
Thank you. Sorry, late.
And
All right, we
with,
got you on. That's great.
with witchcraft.
Thank you.
She's also in it, and she's also Italian, Sandy De Luca, right? And she's and so she approached me. We became friends after she posted. She's always posting on Facebook her art. She's a very prolific artist. And I had done a poem, so I kind of think of it as in terms of the biopunk genre, trying to get my head in the frame. Oh dear, I'm going to be.
I'm struggling with that too. Don't.
It's like, are you in the struggle bus?
We have.
We're also neurodivergent, so everything is fucking backwards.
Yeah, all kinds of havoc.
The swears, but I
Right.
just did. And yeah,
You're okay. You look good. I can see you.
yeah. And Alea here has the havoc hands. She's also a ufologist, and she has achieved close encounters of the fifth kind. And maybe Alea could explain a little bit more about what that means, because I was only aware of, like, everybody's seen the Steven Spielberg, right? Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind means that you can make direct contact. So maybe Alea could tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, yeah. There's a thing that I started to learn about doing ufology research. There's a lot I learned doing that, and I'm still putting the pieces together. But I started having encounters. I actually found out I was wrong about the time that they started. I thought it was in 2014. It was actually 2012, I believe. So, like, yeah, and so yeah, I've had so many things happen that I couldn't explain, and but there's one thing I learned about in ufology is that, like, a lot of people do meditation and energy work, and there's different types of it. There's telepathy, or if you want to call it ESP. I believe in that, and like, I don't know. I guess to me, to explain it simply, it's about putting out, like, a positive vibration and a positive intention of wanting to communicate with, like, the greater community that's in the galaxy around us, that a lot of us have been cut off from for however many lifetimes, if you even believe in that type of thing. If you don't, that's fine too, because like, we're all kind of finding our way in it. So I don't claim to be an expert on this stuff. I'm more of a researcher and an energy worker, I guess. But yeah, it's had a big impact on my life, and I've done some, like, a little bit of documentary work. I've worked with different investigators, and gotten lucky to have met some people that helped me, like, navigate that world and start putting the pieces together. So I hope that explains it a little bit. I don't know.
Tell us a little bit about Thunderstruck from here.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about the genesis of Thunderstruck. What brought this on? What brought this
Right.
project
Well,
forward?
so yeah. So as I was explaining before, you know, Sandy came to me, and she wanted to collaborate with me on for me to finish these poems that she started in 1998. And these were really, her style is so unique. I mean, there's a reason that she's held in, the archives at Brown University, is because she has a kind of a distinct way, a kind of a way of getting in under your skin, because she's
Hmm.
not just a horror writer, she's a witch. And so that makes all of the
Hmm.
difference. There are horror writers that I've worked with who are also witches. Sephra Giron, who um, who was in Axis of Evil, a heavy metal horror anthology. And I've also known other witches, such as a woman named Karen Crisis, who was the founder of the head of you know, the band Crisis, and also Gospel of Witches, and Ethel Duath. And, just, I always use this kind of show and tell, because I named her in my magazine Juggernaut. I named her the Extra Sister because of her very cathartic kind of, you know, um, performance style. And I don't know if you can see that, but she named this T-shirt, or it's a girly shirt actually, after the Exorcister, and this is her art. This is her artwork that she did, and I think that might seem like a tangent, but I've noticed in my life there's this pattern where I've become involved without realizing that there was all these sort of almost almost subconscious connections with people who are kind of vibrating at the higher wavelength, and are part of the better timeline. I believe that she is a healer. She's a Reiki therapist, and she's just recently discovered that she's an Italian witch, like Sandy DeLuca. Another Italian witch that I've worked with, her name is Terry Bean Murphy, and like so who was one of the original. She was a white girl rapper who was in a relationship with Eazy-E, right, from NWA, right. In 1990, she put out an album called
Hmm.
"The Power of a Woman," and she wrote these songs, like these rap songs called like "Murder She Wrote," and she had Eazy-E tied up in this video. She has him tied up, and she's like, and she's representing. Like Alea, you've seen the video. Could you like describe what Terry does in that video? Because this is all relevant, believe it or not. Yeah.
Oh, oh, geez, which one was it?
That was the
Can you
one
say
where
it again?
Terry B. Murphy, where she's got like Eazy-E, and
Oh,
he's in
yeah.
an office chair, and he's
Gosh.
got him tied up, and
Hmm.
that was like the
Oh
rap
my
song, like
gosh.
Murder She Wrote, right? And
Yeah, it was so
she's like this
artistic.
mob
It
boss,
was
and
in
it's like a
like
1940s
black
film,
and white
black and white
and
film.
very, oh gosh, very like, I don't know. I think it's kind of like high fashion too for, I don't know. It's just really cool, you know, like really cool outfits. Very like, I don't know. She has like a very strong feminine power about her, and then the lyrics are just really and just really cool. I I would imagine, because gosh, I know that that song has been around for a long time. I would imagine it was probably kind of groundbreaking at the time, wasn't it?
It was, And the other
And
thing,
I'm sorry, I have a hard time explaining or describing it, but it's
no,
really
no worries.
cool.
What was really awesome is that this was Juggernaut magazine. Juggernaut magazine, and I'm having a hard time like showing it or getting in front of the camera
It's okay.
because I'm neurodivergent AF, and I'm dealing with
Mhm.
echo, which is so anyway. And like the way this is coming through is all fragmentary. But anyway, I'm having a hard time here. I'm on the struggle bus. But this was a cover
Oh,
of
it's okay.
Juggernaut. It was a cover article that I wrote because I edited Juggernaut magazine back in the 90s. And I started out, this is all relevant, believe it or not, because I started out is that, yeah, I started out actually interviewing people like, you know, Poppy Z. Bright. I'm not sure if you're aware, Poppy Z. Bright. She's a very, very cool author. She wrote Exquisite Corpse, Lost Soul, the Liquor series, and I was put on to Poppy by a guy named Craig Spector. Of like he and John Skip had recently broken up, and I was living in South Pasadena at the time, California, and it's in
Mhm.
Southern California, and I wasn't aware that Craig was actually living in Pasadena too. And so this was right after there was a very famous, you know, breakup because, Skip Inspector and David J. Scow, you know, who wrote The Crow with John Shirley, right? And they had just, Skip and Spector were two of the main splatterpunk, founded splatterpunk.
Mhm.
And there was this little bookstore called Bookham Mysteries in South Pasadena, and I would go there all the time. I was a huge mystery fan, science fiction, fantasy, dark fiction, horror, and I was going through. I was looking for some splatterpunk stuff. I saw, oh, they've got Skip Inspector, so I was like, picked it up, and I saw it was signed by John Skip, and I was like, oh my god, is this a real signature by John Skip? And they said, sure. We just had, Skip Inspector sign here. We're friends with them. I'm like, oh my God. And I said, do you think that they would talk to me? Because I want to know, like many, many millions of fans, of Skip Inspector and Splatterpunk. I wanted to know what happened with Skip Inspector, why they broke up. And like 3 days later, I get a call in the middle of the night. It's like, hey, this is Craig Spector, I was like, holy guacamole, And so we started talking and talking and talking, and we met for coffee, and I went to his apartment, and you know, like I don't know how many hours we spent. He would just like after that he would just call me up just randomly, and
Mhm.
he's like, "Hey, you like bowling? You like not bowling, but you like pool? You want to play some pool?" I was like, yeah, whatever, And so, and there was something that happened which just blew my mind because there was this it was a coffee bar in Pasadena called the E Bar, and where a number like I and my former friend Sabrina Coletta and my dear friend who's no longer with us, unfortunately, Jordan Gallagher. More about her in a moment, but we would we Sabrina and I would do these poetry readings, right? And so I was friends with the people who ran the E Bar. I was doing it a talk. I was just meeting up with Craig Spector at the E Bar, and it was a point where they were going to close because they were having a lot of financial problems, and so you've seen, like The Godfather, right? Everybody's seen The Godfather. Remember that scene when Michael Corleone, he's in Italy, right? And he summons the father of the 16-year-old girl that he wants to date, basically, right? She was 16 years old. I mean, literally, the actress. And I don't know if they say that in the movie what age she was supposed to be. I read the novel years ago, and he says, with respect, I would like to, with accompaniment, I would like to, talk with your daughter. And of course, he's Michael Corleone, and he's like, he's a psycho killer, right? It's like everybody's like, oh my God. Well, Craig is very similar. He has a lot. He's Russian, so he's got this. He's an alpha male from, like powerful alpha energy. The guy is like hardcore, right? And it's like, yeah, I want to talk to you. He summons the owner of the E-bar. I want to talk to you, and he says, I'm an author, and and these are my books, and he's got a cardboard box full of the light at the end, the scream, the bridge, animals, deadlines, like all of these famous, splatterpunk novels that he wrote with Skip. And he says, I understand you've been, he doesn't really talk like this, but he said, I want to do a benefit. I want to have bring my friends over, and we're going to do a little benefit for you. I understand you're having some financial concerns, right? So next week, he shows up with David J. Scow, who wrote The Crow. Okay, I mean, James O'Barr, right, wrote the original graphic novel series, the comic books. John Shirley, who's the creator of cyberpunk, who's a lyricist for Blue Oyster Cult. He's all over their last album, and he wrote The Crow. He did it all. The man does it all, right? And he's a musician himself. Mm-hmm. And David J. Scow, who also wrote Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. So Scow shows up with Craig Spector and R.C. Matheson, who was the son of Richard Matheson, who wrote Hell House and I Am Legend and the Twilight Zone movie, right? His brother was Chris Matheson, who created Bill and Ted, right? So R.C. Matheson, this guy, he created the A-Team. You may remember the A-Team, I Pity the Fool, right? That guy, right? So these fucking, I'm sorry if I don't know where, but these fucking legends show up, and in tow was Krista Faust, who was a former dominatrix. We got, show and tell, this is an interview I did with her. Anyway, so they had Krista Faust in tow, who was married to David J. Scow, either married or was his girlfriend, and then I think that was the year they were extras in the ballroom scene. Stephen King directed his own version of The Stand because he wasn't happy with this Stanley Kubrick version. I'm sorry, this seems like a lot of extra stuff. It's like, why is Alex talking about this? But this is how I got started.
I think you mean The Shining, not The Stand, The Shining.
The Stand. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. The Shining. Yeah. It's all good. It's The Shining. So they went to, I think it was at Pinewood Studios in England. Krista Faust and David J. Scow went to, and they filmed it there. I think that's where they did James Bond and Hammer stuff. And anyway, so there they are,
Mhm.
right? There's the Splatterpunks, right? And it was completely insane. And all these years later, like this stuff is legendary. Well, he said, you know, Craig said, okay, you got to talk to my friend Poppy Z. Bright. Poppy Z. Bright, and also you got to talk to Krista Faust. Krista Faust was a little bit intimidating, and I was standing next to, because originally they were gonna have a signing and they did a reading and everything, but nobody showed up. Nobody showed up. I mean, we got these legends of horror, nobody shows up, right? So they were just talking amongst themselves, and I was standing next to Krista Faust, and I had a copy of Young Blood, which had a story that she wrote with Poppy, and I was like, and she said, "Stop working, just fucking shut up." I was like, what? I was like, I'm sorry. I was just, because I'm extremely polite, person. And so anyway, I did an interview
Mhm.
with her, and that turned into a relationship with several magazines, such as Dark Angel magazine in Melbourne, where I interviewed Poppy, and they had somebody flake out on them. They wanted me to interview a guy named Roz Williams. Roz Williams, they've heard of Christian Death, right? Christian Death, the Gothic, or actually death rock band. This was about a year before he committed suicide, and things escalated. I started doing music journalism in addition to doing short stories, and I published with Blood Songs magazine, which was one of the first extreme horror magazine, alongside people like Edward Lee, right? Edward Lee, who I met a few weeks after I published my first short story with Blood Songs, and then I met Edward Lee, and we're sitting on a sidewalk in Pasadena talking shop about horror, and that was like in 1998 or so. And I think my career has basically been a lot of successes, a lot of failures, and this is sort of all plays into talking about the origin story of Thunderstruck, because 1998 was a very decisive year for me. And it was, interestingly enough, that was the year that Sandy was writing all these poems that later, this year, she wanted me to complete. And so I finished, we wrote the whole book in 2 weeks, 2 weeks, because, we got along so famously. It was sort of like telepathic. It was like we were communicating at another frequency, and I've never had that experience. Well, I've collaborated with Juliet Cook. I've collaborated with some other people, who's a very well known poet, and remind me to talk about Ellen maybe at some point. But we're so um, and so then in 2010, I was teaching with. I mean, there's not enough time to talk about the Jason X book, but I was teaching at Cal State Dominguez Hills in Carson,
Mhm.
which is a very, very kind of low socioeconomic. That was, I got my master's degree in rhetoric there and English,
Mhm.
and I also have a degree in developmental communication, a certificate in developmental communication. And I met somebody, my fellow instructor, my co-instructor, who for this we had this primarily Mexican American, Rasta kind of cohort, and our job was on a federal grant. Our job was to get them on, on board as their basic skills, because these were like the top 30% of high school graduating classes in that area, but they're still the class, the LAUSD, they're very impacted, and and there's a lot of racist economic policies that impacted primarily Mexican American and Latinos. So they were really, really behind in terms of the basic skills. So I am Melissa Williams, who was actually, when she was a kid, when she was 14 years old, and this is kind of parallels too with Carrie Lee Chrome, with as far as her being in a documentary called Better Living Through Chemistry, because she was a raver. She was a rave girl, right? And so she said, hey, there's this woman named Ellen Mabey, and she works for Beyond Baroque in Venice Beach, California. It's in Los Angeles area, and Venice Beach is absolutely beautiful, right? They've got like muscle, whatever, the Muscle Beach thing going on. And she said, yeah, she's this amazing poet, and she giggles a lot. Well, she's neurodivergent at AF. This is Ellen Mabey, and I'm having a hell of a time getting this thing into the frame.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to worry about it, because we're having some fun here, and this is really interesting information, I think. And so she's and Melissa said, you gotta check her out. So I ordered her book called Walking Barefoot Through the Glassblowers Museum. Right? Isn't that a great title? Walking Barefoot Through the Glassblowers Museum. See, that is an example of her next level visionary, and Alea is also a friend of Ellen's, right? And she has a kind of a visionary approach, and I would highly recommend. We're mutual friends, as I introduced you to. Her vision of, particularly her vision or ecological vision. She wrote a poem which we're publishing in Weird Gregor Disability Rights Anthology called A Whiff of Whimsy, and it has the phrase "a collective paw." And I want to. You're looking so beautiful, Leah. I'm just telling you, you look like some sort of like gypsy, like you would just terrifyingly spellbinder. You would just like, you cast a love spell over me. I'm not sure you haven't. So anyway, so talk about our friend Ellen Mabey for a second, because I don't want to hog anything.
Oh, Ellen Mabey's really cool. Alex introduced me to her poetry and introduced me to her as a person. And she's a beat poet, and her poems are really, gosh, there's so much to them. She talks about war. She talks about, social issues. She talks about her own struggles that she's gotten through, and she does she has a little band that plays with her, and I don't know a whole lot about the band, the people that she has playing with her, but they play music to back up the beat to her poem, and then she reads it to a beat, and they're very mesmerizing, and just she talks about really deep issues that a lot of people around the world can really relate to it. So I think that's why her work really touches so many people on so many different levels, because I think she's very empathic. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe her. She's an artist too. I don't know if that helps.
So, what about you guys in activism? What kind of activism that you
Well,
do?
Alea comes from a whole line of activists, and her grandfather was a minister. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, my family are Quakers on my father's side, and my grandfather and grandmother were raising their children down in they lived down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and my grandfather was very outspoken about his his church. He wanted it to be desegregated, so he encouraged black people and white people to sit together and associate amongst each other, and he supported that. And they were abolitionists and um, very outspoken. And he was very upset when he came into his church one day and found that somebody had put up a roped off section to try to separate the black people from the white people, and it really upset him, and he was speaking out about that. And my family, they had to scoop up their kids, my dad and his siblings, and in like I think in the middle of the night or the early morning, because they found burning crosses on their yard, and they
Hmm.
they had dealt with other things around that time, but that was the thing that told them, okay, we gotta go. And so they moved up north slowly, and they eventually made their way up to Michigan. And so that's how we got here. So, and there's like a lot of different activism in my family for different things, and we're not all the same. Many of my family members have different beliefs, um, and not everybody agrees on everything, but most of us are okay with that. We just try to learn from each other and just uphold each other's rights.
Hmm.
So I hope that describes. Both of my parents were very encouraging. Oh, we did different protests. We protested back, and we protested the war on, like the war on Iraq and all that stuff that was going on too. And I was very young back then, but and there were all kinds of other things that we did, and I don't want to go on forever, but I'm lucky I had a family that wanted to encourage us to stand up for what we believe in. And I'm blessed in that way, I guess. So I'm very grateful for that.
That's absolutely something to be proud
Thank you.
of. I mean, you're making a mark in the world, and hopefully bettering conditions for the future. And I think it's wonderful that and plus it's a good way to test knowledge. You have to get your knowledge and put it in gear for it to really be active knowledge. They call it
Thank you.
praxis. What about Hand of Doom? Tell us about Hand of Doom. That sounds like an interesting project,
Uh,
and I believe that's going to help victims of sex
that
trafficking. I
that
think you
is that is
said.
absolutely correct, and it is actually that is something that is extremely important issue for both Alea and myself. Um, Alea is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
trauma, and you know horrific things were done to her. I have fortunately, was not affected that way. However, many of my friends are survivors, and I was groomed by my Jesuit high school theology instructor, who's now dead. But we have a mutual friend named Carrie Lee Crome, and she's a very famous kind of, I'm sorry, I might get a little emotional here, because she's a very, very famous woman. She's been through one hell of a lot in her life, and her story is not mine to tell. I will only talk about the things that were very well publicized as far as Huffington Post, Rolling Stone magazine, um, New York Times. Um, she was the creator with her girlfriend. I believe she's bisexual. She and a woman named I forget what her real name is. She goes by the name Joan Jett. And both see Carrie Crome and Joan Jett. They're both names that sort of remind you of kind of like 1950s futurism, like chrome grills and jets, right? That's where they got it. Carrie is really into like the old time R&B. That's one of her big enthusiasms, is get her started on like particularly like Screamin' Jay Hawkins, right? She loves her some Screamin' Jay Hawkins, and she wanted to. Her dream was, well, you had Susie Quattro, right? Susie Quattro was a very big inspiration for a lot of the girls that were, at that period. There's many different versions of the origin story of the Runaways, but you had this teenage surfer named Jackie Fuchs, who come from a very abusive upbringing, and I think she was also from the Long Beach area. I'm probably wrong. I do know that she was a surfer, and she was a genius, absolute genius. She would go to the surf and the beaches of LA to kind of get it away from it all. There was girl, and when I mean girl, I don't mean to be misogynist. I mean they were literally kids. They're literally children.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackie Fuchs, and Sherry Curry became the lead singer of the Runaways, and you had Sandy, the drummer, I forget who's now no longer with us. Rest in peace. And you had Lita Ford, right? Lita Ford, who's their lead guitarist. She's kind of like a teenage female Richie Blackmore. Okay, so and I don't know exactly because there are so many different versions. All I know is that there's a guy named Rodney Bingenheimer who did something called the English Disco. It was a very, very famous nightclub, all ages nightclub in Hollywood, and a lot of young people, because it was open, it was very, very attractive, and you could go there and hang out with stars like David Bowie would be there, Iggy Pop. It was open. It was open season. And this was an era where, if you've seen the movie Almost Famous, right? Almost Famous with Kate Hudson, right? You've seen that movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say yes.
I don't think I've seen
I feel like stupid. Yes. So
It's okay.
Philip Seymour Hoffman was in it.
Uh-huh.
And Fairuza Balk, right?
Right.
The Craft. She's in it. Okay, so anyway, who's an actual witch as well, right? Interestingly enough. And so she was the technical witchcraft advisor to the Craft, because she's the real thing. A lot of people don't know that. And anyway, so so there was this whole thing where there was a groupie culture involved around that circulating around two people, Rodney Bingenheimer, and who was like who was a DJ in LA for K-Rock, and he had a show called Rodney on the Rock. There was another guy named Kim Fowley. Kim Fowley is a very famous, or was a very famous, because he's dead, a very famous, you know, producer, songwriter, sort of Svengali. He put the Runaways together. See, Carrie came up with the idea of having an all-girl Ronettes, but they were rock and rollers. They were like the Rolling Stones. You know, they would like pull or ovaries out whatever rock and roll. You know, no holds barred, because she's hardcore. She is an amazing
She is.
genius and funny as fuck. You know,
She is
and
so funny.
she is hilarious, right? And so she had this vision, because she's a visionary, right? She's also and she was like, okay, so she was introduced to Kim Fowley by Rodney Bingenheimer at a party, at an Alice Cooper party. She was like 13 years old, right? And what she didn't realize, to her horror, later horror, was that one pedophile, one child rapist, was passing her off to another one. And so she was living with Kim Fowley, and the rest, you know, it's Carrie's story to tell. And I'm not going to get into because there's a lawsuit involved. I'm not going to get into the details. So for the viewers, if you want to know more about this, you can go to my Facebook page. You can see I posted all the articles and all the links in the original Huffington Post article that was called "The Lost Girls," which she and Jackie Fox came forward with their allegations about Kim Fowley and rape. You know, and it was like this open secret in Hollywood for, 40 years. So then I got to know, interestingly enough, I got to know Carrie about 3 years ago, when she and I were both involved with something called Kaiser Permanente Sucks. Because we're both, patients. Unfortunately, we're patients of Kaiser Permanente. And I was under another name. I was under John Stevenson. And this is actually when Alea and I first met, online through Reddit. And I was writing these blogs, which were kind of exposing, these doctors who would misdiagnose me, because I have literal brain damage, I have literal brain trauma, and they were saying that I just had some sort of hysterical conversion disorder, and I was basically okay. And actually, they came up with this neurologist at Kaiser Permanente named Dr. Suketu Kandar, came up with this fanciful notion that it was because I was no longer working as an English professor that was somehow so traumatized me that 8 years after I was no longer working as an English professor, somehow my subconscious slowly converted that feeling of failure into like basically having brain damage. And then it destroyed my brain, but not really, because I was actually fully intact.
Right.
So they had their chief of radiology, Dr. What's her name? They're very fortunate. I turned in 5 of them to the Medical Board of California, because I don't give a fuck. My box of fucks is arid, it's dry, it's dusty, right? So I was posting as George Bailey. I was posting from It's a Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart, I'll build you, I'll build you I want to build skyscrapers, 50 stories high, and Alessa Lamone, Jimmy Stewart, and so anyway, and then I was doing all these blogs on my Substack. I got Mo from Alea, and then I would post them on Facebook on Kaiser Permanente stuff. And Carrie was a member, is a member. We're both members, and she was like, and one day friend requested me, and she said, and I was like, holy shit. I was telling my parents, I was like, who don't know anything. I mean, they went to high school with, Grace Slick and Joan Baez, but they don't, and they're old too. They're old AF, so they don't care. They don't, they don't really care. It's like, yeah, we've been there, man. We were there. We were there before you were born, many, many years ago. We went to school. We knew all about Grace Slick, okay? Because my mom was like, home econ, like desk partners with Gracie Wing. Anyway, so and who's a total snob, by the way. Anyway, long story short, what was I was like, okay, so, and I did a little jogger refresh my memory. I was like, I did let my Google fingers do the walking, right? Small Bear was like, sorry, I knew I was going to reveal my secret identity as the Small Bear at some point. So with my little paws, that's the keyboard, doing my little Google search, and I get the collective paw.
Yes.
We're insane, but we're gentle and respectful, like crazy, and I was like, Terry Lee Chrome, the founder of the Runaways, she wrote, the song California Paradise, right? Turn on the radio, hear the rock and roll, right? Mm-hmm. That song. You're looking at me like I just grew 3 heads, Dustin. Like, I mean, so the movie. You ever seen the Runaways movie with Kristen Stewart and Dakota Fanning, right? Dakota Fanning plays Jet. Kristen and Dakota Fanning plays Carrie Curry, right? So it was that woman. Mm-hmm. That woman. I was a huge fan of the Runaways. In fact, I met backstage because I'm a music journalist. I met backstage with Lemmy in 2011. We were talking at the Nokia Theater in Hollywood. I think it's in Hollywood. We were talking about Sherry Curry because Sherry Curry was also backstage with us. And so I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that Sherry Curry was a MAGA. I don't want to use the word because it's a horrible short word that denotes a woman's, genitalia. But I will just say that Sherry Curry is a transphobe. She's a MAGA AF, and she calls herself Lady MAGA. I had no idea that she was such a heinous person. Carrie and I became friends. She started to ask me if I would help her out as far as taking a look at some stories that she had written, and she wanted me to help her develop them. So as a developmental communications instructor, I did that professionally. So it's like a developmental editor as well, a book editor. So I said, sure, I'd be happy to. I'd be honored. You are one of the legends of our time. There was before the Runaways. You know how many all-girl rock and roll groups there were? There was one.
Right.
There was one which was well, there was Susie Quattro, and then you had this all-girl group that was at the same time as the Beatles, also in Liverpool. Yes, and you should subscribe to World Inkers Network. And so it was her brainchild. It was like, girls can rock too. Now, a lot of the emphasis in the movie is all about Sherry Curry. You don't see one single reference to Carrie Lee Crone, right? There's a reason for that. Rape. I'm talking about not just physical, but mental. It is not my place to tell her story, and there will be a time, hopefully within our lifetime, when everybody is dead, or the threat to all of us, actually, because there is I'm sorry, there's a pedophile network that is operating in Hollywood, that is active, that is tied in with, I'll just say it, and you can call me a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist all you want. That is literally part of MK Ultra. MK Ultra. This is 100% true.
Wow.
And I don't want to be Alex Jones or anything, but this is 100% true. I know numerous people, and I was part of the old, the original like OG, scene, heavy metal scene, in West Hollywood with the Rainbow Bar and Grill and hanging out with Lemmy and all that stuff, So I know for a fact. I mean, I've hung out with professional hitmen. I've hung out with, like, I had experience. I've been to Hollywood mansions, which were porn sets with members of bands like Slayer, where there was teeming piles of cocaine and nude porn stars and every kind of form of decadence you could possibly imagine is absolutely real. When you're at the level of somebody like Marilyn Manson, you can afford to buy people. You could even afford to have people killed. I'm not saying any allegations whatsoever. These allegations have been made about Marilyn Manson. I'm not saying anything about Marilyn Manson. Those are allegations, and they've been so far disproved. All I'm saying is that these were allegations against him, and I hope that they're not true. But the woman who introduced me to Kim Fowley is or was Marilyn Manson's PA. When I met Kim Fowley in 2003 at the Cleopatra Records Gothic Ball, in the presence of a guy named Alex Zander, I'm going to name his name because he popped up on my Facebook just this morning when I was posting about Sherry Curry, who was quoted as saying in a 2020 interview, she said, "We exploited ourselves." We exploited ourselves, meaning they were 15 years old. She called herself jailbait. She was a good friend of Kim Fowley, the rapist of, Carrie Lee Crone and Jackie Fox. I'm not saying anything that isn't in. You can look it up for yourself. Let your Google pause do that. It's not my place to say. It's not my place to say. And I'm being extremely careful because their reputation's on the line. When Catherine Turnman, who was the co-author of Louder Than Hell, the definitive oral history of metal, and she does a show with, I think she does a show with Alice Cooper and Sharon Osbourne or whatever. This book has like a forward or afterword by Rob Halford. Okay, so she wrote that book, right? She writes for Spin Magazine, she writes for Rolling Stone, and she was originally going to write the forward for Hand of Doom. She was actually the second person to write the forward because the first person, Martin Popoff, who founded Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles, he's the world's foremost expert in Black Sabbath. he pulled out of Hand of Doom and gave the forward that he wrote for Hand of Doom to a woman named Casey Hill, who was complicit in not only infringement of my intellectual property rights, publishing something called Symptom of the Universe, the horror anthology tribute to Black Sabbath, but also in murder threats and against me and my elderly parents, and as well as infringing my intellectual property rights. So we had Martin Popoff, right? Forget Martin Popoff. Bye-bye, right? He went with Casey Hill. He took my name. He wrote in the forward to Hand of Doom, the original forward to Hand of Doom, he wrote Alex S. Johnson and J.C. Masons III, who was my former editor. He went over to Casey Hill as well. I mean, co-editor, right? He wrote Alex S. Johnson and J.C. Masons III are both esteemed fixtures of the rock journalist community. Well, because he's a good friend of Kaiser Hill, J.C. Masons III went to Martin Popoff and he said, "Hey man, could you just take off Alex S. Johnson's name and just have my name as the esteemed fixture?" And he said, "Sure, whatever, man. Whatever you like, whatever. I'm too busy. I'm too busy to bother with, to even pay attention to the fact that you're asking me to do something extremely unethical and to violate a trust with a guy that I'm just throwing under the bus, because I'm too busy to give a fuck, And then, so this is actually Catherine Turnman is the second person in a row to write the forward and then throw me under the bus. You know why? And she pulled out of last night, she pulled out of Hand of Doom. She was going to write the forward. You know why? Because she said, "You've written a lot of stuff about your mental health, and there's a lot of drama on Facebook, and I can't afford to have my reputation be associated with your mental health issues." Seriously, she never once talked to me. Never once had any messages with her. The only kind of interactions we had was when she tagged me in a everyone tag, trying to sell me T-shirts. So I was like, I wonder why Catherine Turnman pulled out. It wasn't because I'm drama, because we have like about 25 authors, including Gemma Files, John Shirley, John Palisano, Christy Nogel, and Carrie Crum. Obviously, we have these are Bram Stoker award-winning authors. They're the most esteemed horror authors in the world have come together and joined us. Okay, so we've got a troll named Mr. Brightside. Okay. So obviously a friend of Casey Hill. Yes. Well, yes. No. Listen, man, Mr. Brightside. I am a retired English fucking professor. I have a terminal degree in English literature, motherfucker. I am talking about a dialect of English, of the English language, and the dialect of Appalachian West Virginia is just the same way as in the 17th century, where in the 16th century, in Shakespeare's time, they talked exactly the same way, which is something that I told Casey Hill. Okay. When we were friends, before she threw me under the bus for the sake of her friend Christopher B. Pelton, who literally threatened to murder me and my elderly parents who are 84 and 86 years old. You fucking asshole. You have no idea what we have been through, Mr. Brightside. Why don't you have the courage, why don't you have the balls to identify yourself, who you fucking are? You're so fucking stupid. You just, I'm not making fun of her accent. I'm describing that it is a dialect of English, which was also spoken by the people in Shakespeare's time. If you were an expert in Shakespeare like I am, you would recognize that I'm just stating facts. I'm stating knowledge, okay? You need to read some fucking Shakespeare, asshole. You know, I'm talking about a dialect. So when I say, yeah, she talks like this, I'm not making fun of her. Just listen to her podcast. It's Christopher B. Pelton, her friend who threatened to murder me in a widely publicized video, a murder threat video that was on YouTube for a month. Okay, where were you? Where were you when this murder threat video? Aren't you supposed to have your own speech impediment? Do I sound like I have a speech impediment, motherfucker? No, I am disabled. I do not have a speech impediment. Actually, I was working with a Kaiser Permanente speech therapist, and they cleared me. They no longer wanted to work with me because I achieved full intelligibility. Yep, I did call her a hayseed. That's what you call a low education person. Mr. Brightside, who are you? You are going, oh yeah, a derogatory term. You know, a person who lives in a rural area, my friend, Alea Celeste Williams. Okay, could you speak to this person, Mr. Brightside, who doesn't have the balls to identify who they actually are? You do stutter a lot, so you have an impediment. Yes, I do stutter.
Somebody on YouTube is.
Do I stutter? No, I do not. Can you cut this guy's cord or whatever? Because I warned you we're going to have some trolls. I do not want to deal with trolls trying to derail this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I stutter too. I stutter a little bit, you know.
Do I stutter? Do I fucking stutter? Did I stutter?
Didn't see any stuttering.
I don't think so. I do not think so. I think this guy is trying to control us and gaslight us.
And I'm not ashamed of it, you know.
You know, but Alea Celeste Williams is from a rural area of the Midwest called Monroe, Michigan. Okay, so she is considered to have an accent, and she's not ashamed of it. We're not ashamed of it. You know, did I call Casey Hill a hayseed? Yes. The reason why is she's a low education person who brags about the fact that she has 2 years of journalism, high school journalism, right? And that's just something she's proud of. Yeah, I took 2 years of high school journalism as well. I've been a professional journalist for 25 years. I wrote for Metal Hammer magazine. Okay, did Casey Hill? No, I don't think so. How many articles has she had published in Metal Hammer magazine, or Experience Hendrix, or Metal Maniacs, or Zero Tolerance, or Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles, or, you know, any one of hundreds and hundreds of magazines that I've written for? Did she edit a New York Times best-selling memoir, you know, of a guy who was a friend of Muhammad Ali and Martin Luther King Jr., Tom Sullivan? I've also worked with Betty White. Okay, so if you want to come up with some bullshit, I will bring it, motherfucker. I will bring this shit. But you know what? I'm not even going to engage with you because you're
doing banjos here.
Stupid. You know, you're just so stupid. You don't even have
doing banjos.
You know, I have like a degree in rhetoric and composition. You know, like what are your credentials to talk to me? Okay, what are your credentials? I worked with Betty White. You know, did you write?
We're gonna have to wrap it up here in a little bit.
You know who Betty White is? You know, are you going to make fun of me, my stuttering, my speech impairment? Is that charitable? Is that charitable? So it doesn't. You can't have a double standard, and it can't work
Right.
ways. You can't both sides this shit. You can't say, "Oh, I'm making fun of Casey Hill's accent," which I'm not. I'm describing it. It's a rural accent. I'm describing it accurately, and then say, "Well, you stutter," when I actually do not stutter. I might get a little agitated because you're a fucking idiot and you don't have the balls to identify yourself.
He's Mr. Brightside.
He's Mr. Brightside. He's the bright side. He's the bright side of the dark side of the moon. Casey Hill. Dark Moon Rising publications. We rip off other people's ideas and we publish them, and we pretend that they're their own. And when they push back, we threaten their parents with lawsuits to try to get them to stop publishing.
Right.
That's what she did. And then, and when I say she's a hasty, she doesn't have any sense of grammar because she doesn't know what a past participle is. Do you know what a past participle is? I don't think you do. Do you have a terminal degree in English literature? I don't think you know what a terminal degree is. My father went to Yale University, motherfucker. He studied with the Dean of American Literary Criticism, who was also his good friend, a man named Harold Bloom. He studied. Have you ever heard of Harold Bloom? No, I don't think you did. He's also studied with the founder of the Bauhaus School. Have you ever heard of Bauhaus?
Right.
It's not just the band. It was a art and design movement in Germany, and with people like Miles van der Rohe and Wassily Kandinsky and Joseph Albers taught my father, Stephen M. Johnson, is a world-renowned artist and author, inventor, and futurist who his fans are people like Bjork. Okay. Do you have any idea what you're fucking talking about? I see you've suddenly gone quiet. You've suddenly gone quiet. And why can't we ban these people, Justin? Why do I have to engage with them?
He did. Yeah, he did.
Okay. So
he did. He did ban him.
I'm sorry, and it's like, if anybody wants to question my credentials, my master's thesis is online. Okay. It's called Rhetoric, Magic, and Reconstructions of the Liminal Self in Gloria Anzaldúa's Borderlands. And you can find that. You can just let your Google fingers do the walking, and you can find that online. Who is Mr. Brightside? Is that M.G. Allen? Is that the boyfriend or the doppelganger of a woman named
I have
Pixie
no idea who
Bruner?
it was.
I think it is. I think it's M.G. Allen, who lives in Georgia, with Pixie Bruner, who is the co-editor of Nature Triumphs, which was published by Casey Hill. I was the original publisher. You have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea what you're messing with. You have no idea what you're messing with. You have no idea of the amplitude of our ability to influence. And you think that you're, down there, whatever. I'm sorry that you come from a information and education deprived background. A lot of people struggle. I was very fortunate indeed. I went to Cal State Dominguez Hills. It's not a big university. It's not a major university. I also went to UC Davis. Right, I have a degree in comparative literature. I speak English, French, and German. But this is not about me. This is not about, and it's ironically enough, you have pissed me off. So you've given me all the more opportunities to tell you about some of my qualifications. If you want to talk about, like, as far as people being well recognized in writing, okay, ever heard of a guy named John Shirley, co-wrote The Crow? I talked about him with David J. Scow. He wrote of my books, The Flowers of Doom. He said, Alan S. Johnson is the Baudelaire of our time, the poet of the underground. You probably don't know who Baudelaire is, right? If you did, you understand Charles Baudelaire was considered by T.S. Eliot to be the the most important poet of modern times. Okay, so that's coming from John Shirley, who created cyberpunk. You ever heard of cyberpunk? You ever heard of the Matrix? Okay, so
Yeah.
you want to talk about that. You want to talk about some credentials. You want to talk about some qualifications. Okay, to be able to talk in rhetorical terms, that's called ethos. Ethos is your ability to talk in a qualified manner. Whether or not I stutter, I don't think I've stuttered. In fact, the angrier I get, the less of a speech impediment I get, because I get cold-blooded when I am pissed off. You know, my books, the Skull Vinyl, which I can show to you, Skull Vinyl and the Doom Hippies are. You ever heard of Harvard fucking University? Right down there, Mr. Brightside. Ever heard of Harvard University? You know,
Right.
It's a pretty important school. You know who went there? Barack Obama. You know, pretty important school, right?
Mm-hmm.
My book is in Skull Vinyl and the Doom Hippies, and I believe Alea has a copy of the Doom Hippies that she can show to you. It is collected in the Widener Library at Harvard College. And they don't just ask people, they don't just ask, Harvard University does not just ask random authors, hey, can I have your book? Can you send me your book so I can put it in our library so future Barack Obamas can read your poetry and maybe study it and learn something? You know, I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to bring it. I did not want to bring that. I didn't want to make it about myself, man. But you are mischaracterizing me. You are gaslighting me. You're lying about me, and you're deflecting the issue.
So we'll have to. So we're gonna have to wrap it up now. We've been on for 1 hour and 15 minutes, but thank you so much for being on the program.
You know what? I warned you, Dustin. I warned you that this was going to happen, and it happened anyway because you weren't there manning the door. Okay, so that's on you. Okay, so we should have been able to read our poetry instead of allowing these trolls.
But we'll have to wrap it up.
Over. Okay, so that's on you.
Why don't you do that? Why don't you read a couple of poems?
Willing to have us on again because you allowed a troll in?
Okay.
I warned you about it.
No, it's okay. It's quite all right. It happens. Why don't I get you guys to read a couple of poems at the end here, and then we'll close out.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to read? I could read Blood Red.
Okay, let's read Blood Red. Let's read Blood Red.
Okay, give me 1 second here.
Oh boy, and Blood Red is collected in in We Are Gregor, a Disability Rights Anthology, which is forthcoming in December from Nocturnicorn Books Incorporated. And it contains poetry by everybody from Ron Whitehead, Ellen Mabey, Neurodivergent Rebel, etc., etc., etc. Alea's in the book. And she also co-edits the book.
Yeah. Okay. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to pull it up because I do not have my own poem memorized yet. It would take me probably years to do that. So I'm going to go ahead. But yeah, I'll go ahead and read it if you guys want. Okay. So, and I wrote it for Alex, and it was really, I had gone for many years without like actually writing a poem because, it's, basically kind of like trauma stuff. So, I hadn't been doing that for a while. And so it kind of helped me. He kind of inspired me to like want to write something, because I know he's gone through a lot, and he's he needed a friend to, like, I wanted to, like, give him something that would make him feel better and feel like, somebody understood in my own way what he was going through. So this was for Alex. So anyway, so here's my poem, Blood Red. Upset, no, bitch, we ain't upset. Yes, you heard what I said. Dead yet? No, bitch, we ain't dead yet. And no, I'm not upset. Dead yet? No, bitch, I ain't dead yet. Yes, I heard what you said, and I ain't gonna let you get ahead. Live rent-free in my head. Never forget, I turn over instead. Contest, object, no, I'm not oppressed. A nation in distress won't let you get ahead. Ahead, forgive, never forget. You will live to regret your every attempt at offense. Upset. Yeah, bitch, that's what I said. Go ahead. You want to taste a shot of lead? No, bitch, we ain't dead yet. Blood red. Everybody's red-blooded. I could not care less. Live rent-free in your head. Obsessed at best. Just a little tiny pest. Wallow in a mire under my step. That that could be for Mr. Brightside. No, bitch, we ain't dead yet.
Do a stutter, bitch.
And didn't expect me to resurrect. Everybody's red-blooded. The best, living rent-free in your head. No, I'm not oppressed because I'm from the West. Go ahead. Try to blow me down. Gonna ricochet. No, bitch, we ain't dead yet. Not when I'm from the West. The best. Never forget. Every single one of us is red-blooded. The West. That's why we are the best. The best. The best.
Okay, now
And I was also inspired by Bela Lugosi's Dead,
we
which
need,
there's a whole story about
because
that too.
Mr. Brightside
Yeah, I know
derailed
he's
us,
got.
and it's not my fault, and it's not your fault. It's none of our faults. But I need to mention a couple of things. I want to wrap up the whole discussion about Carrie Lee Crum. Carrie Lee Crum is working through her trauma that she experienced at the hands of Kim Fowley and of Rodney Bingenheimer by writing a novella called Children of the Grave, which is her first time that she's ever been published as an author, and it's going to be included in Hand of Doom, a literary tribute to Black Sabbath, which is forthcoming this December from Nocturnicorn Books. I also want people to be out there looking out for We Are Gregor Disability Rights Anthology, and also The Junk Merchants 2, a literary tribute to William S. Burroughs, which features Poppy Z. Bright, wrote the introduction, Graham Masterton, Maxim Jakubowski, John Shirley, John Palisano, Maria Genevieve Fortier, and we have an original poem by David J. Haskins, who was the founder member of Bauhaus and Love and Rockets, and he wrote the song Bela Lugosi's Dead, which inspired Alea's poem. And also, David J. is a contributor to another anthology we're putting out later next year, which is called Will Cover You, a literary tribute to OLAWUYI. We have contributions to the Bauhaus book by Jarbo from the Swans, and Tara Vanflower from the band Lycia, among numerous other luminaries of music and literature. And I think what Alea and I are doing with Nocturnicorn Books has never been done, certainly not by the likes, oh, Mr. Brightside. Okay, I'm
Thanks
calling
for being
now.
on.
Did I
Thanks
stutter?
for being
Which?
on the show today. Yeah, no stuttering involved in that. All right. Well, thanks for being on the show today, and we'll hopefully have you again for some more promotional work. And
Thank
it's
you.
great to see you. If you guys are watching out there, subscribe to our channel. We'd love to have you as
Thank you
subscribers.
for
I'm
having
Dustin
us.
Pickering.
Collective Paul. Thank you.
Thank you
you.
for
so much,
having us
Dustin
and being
Pickering.
so
And I
chill.
apologize for going off on you.
So we did a little
I
extra
know
time
we're a
for
bit
the
wild, but
Halloween holidays.
Thank
We gave you
you.
guys a little extra
Thank you. That was really nice of you.
time
We
for that,
appreciate
and
it.
it was interesting talk, and I like the little showdown we
Namaste.
had with our troll. Sure, no problem. So thank you very much. Have a great day, guys, and we'll see you again next time.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been watching World Inkers Network. I'm Dustin Pickering. Subscribe to our channel. We'd love to have you as subscribers. And remember, we have Writers Speak, an anthology related to current events coming out. The deadline was October 15th, but we have increased the deadline. So we'll be having more information about that soon. And definitely be in touch with me, publication.worldinkers@gmail.com. I hope you guys have an excellent day. And remember, if you're not writing today, you might want to get to it because that's the day. Today's a good, calm, relaxing day. And I hope to see you guys again next time. We'll hopefully have a show. We have Dr. Laxmisri Banerjee on the 9th of November. And we will see you guys then. And like I said, if I can find my closing show credit here in a minute, give me just a second. I'm lagging behind. Get to writing.
Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the Parrot. Parrot TV.